Hello everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids, and in today's video we're checking out the hottest new champion for Hydra, none other than Madman, a rare champion from the Dwarfs faction. We're on the test server to do this because I don't actually have this champion on the live server, so I was able to pull some shards I had on the test server and get this guy. What is going on here? Why is there so much discussion about this champ? Why is he potentially Trunda 2.0? Well, the answer is very simple. It's all about his A1, Wild Slashing. Attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of attacking all other enemies with a second hit, doing 30% of the damage inflicted from the first hit. This is basically mini Trunda, but hers is on a cooldown, right? Trunda on a cooldown attacks one enemy, then attacks all enemies with the second hit, doing 60% of the damage from the first hit. And now, as you might know, I have to read my comments. I get a lot of comments telling me that there's no issue here. People are very bad at maths, and they do think that Trunda's second hit is 60%. I don't know. I should get them to invest. No, that's what we'll do. I'll get you to invest. You give me $1 million, and I'll give you 60% back. They'll be like, yes, nubkeks, I'm going to be rich. And I'll be laughing all the way to the bank. But yeah, this rare, so very accessible. He does, it's half of that. So he's not going to hit as hard as Trunda. So it's not going to do as much damage. It's a 50-50 to trigger it. And it is only 30%. But here's the thing. This is an A1 ability. He can do this every single turn. If he counterattacks, he will do it. If you ally attack, he will do it. That's pretty exciting, right? You don't need these Yumiko stacking or Kaimar stacking to reset at the perfect moment. He can just simply do this every single turn. So how good is it? What does it look like? Well, let's dive in. By the way, I'll show you the builds in a bit. I did build them for damage, but if we look at, I did some test runs, right? So this run here, let's just watch this. Let's just go watch this. You can go away. You can see his A1 right there. He hit for about 450k. Shamail's A2, they're both built in decent damage builds. I'll show you the builds so you can compare. Shamail's A2 is hitting for about 1 million damage. This is just on hard. We didn't trigger the extra hit from Madman. Let's see if we can spot it here when it comes in. And this is sort of a fairly perfect situation where we've got a lot of decapitated heads. Here he goes. Boom, look at that. Look at that. So I think he hit the first head for 400,000. He's hit this head for 1 million. And this one for 700,000. He hit, in fact, even Mischief for 600,000. So yeah, that 400k, we've triggered the 50-50. He's spread 30%, and it's doing this much. By the way, so I'm being facetious. I'm being mean to people that tell me that it's working clearly as intended. What actually happens with Trunda and with this champion on their move is that when it takes the 60% for Trunda or the 30% in this case for Madman, it actually takes that damage and then it applies all of the damage multipliers again. So all the damage from books, Madman has, I believe, 25% damage from books. You get the 25% extra. You get all of his crit damage again, so it multiplies it by his crit damage. All of that goodness. In this case, it multiplies it by the decapitated heads as well. All of this stuff. It basically lets everything happen again a second time, which obviously, again, if you're bad at maths, 1 million damage is significantly more than 30% of 400,000, which would be about, I don't know what, like 130,000 or so. So yeah, it's a lot. So there you go. Let's click play. So we jump from 16 million to 13 million. Again, here we've got a fairly perfect setup where we get, look at that, we get decreased defense weakened from Lydia. We get increased attack from Mithrala. So we now have decreased defense and weaken on all of these heads. We've increased attack on Madman. This is perfect. I think I do get a hit here that hits everything. So here we go. Hits the first head, 440,000. We target Head of Mischief. It's a good affinity for him, and it's the weakest head. You can see, by the way, that we're spreading hex damage to the rest of the head. So all the other heads have taken 132,000 from hex there, I think. Then he comes across and boom, look at that. 440,000 turned into 1.8 million. 1.7 million, 1.6 million. That is just dirty. We might have got Phantom Touch, and we've got, or maybe that, oh no, that's just the AoE Hex damage. Maybe a Phantom Touch in there, but we've gone from what? 18 million, ooh, to 24 million. Massive hit. Absolutely massive. And he can do this every single time, which is just crazy. So there you go. That is how it's working. Now, here's the thing. Okay, I've got you hyped up. I've drawn you in. Now let's reel you back a little bit. Let's let some reality set in as well. Bam. So there you can see there are some downsides to it. So number one, as you can see right there, it is still a 50-50 on the A1 to actually land it. And there's a few other issues as well. So big issue, definitely, is affinity. He is Spirit Affinity, and one problem with this rotation on the test server that I found is that half of the heads are magic affinity. So he can weak hit those heads, and he's just not going to do any damage. Like if you weak hit a head, it's just not going to do anything, and the cleave is therefore not going to do any much damage either. So affinity has a really big effect. This is something that does affect Trunda as well. Affinity is very, very bad. You can see, by the way, there, like against these heads, you know, we hit for 400k, and because they got the damage reduction, it's not cleaving for too much. We'll leave it play, and you can sort of spot how much sort of damage he's doing. But yeah, like right here, 2 magic affinity heads. That's really going to lower his damage. Another problem or things you'll run into when trying to build a composition is because it's based on the damage that he does, you need to be running him really with savage gear or lethal gear or maybe instinct gear to ignore defense, so he hits harder. The harder he hits, the more damage it spreads, obviously. You need Helm Smasher, and you kind of need Helm Smasher to proc to do maximum damage, because again, hit as hard as possible, and then that's going to be spreading and massively multiplying all that damage. He needs increased attack to hit hard. If you don't have increased attack, he's going to do, what, 60% less damage. One big problem you can run into, that I did run into, is that because for this run, he's bad affinity to Head of Wrath on the test server. Head of Wrath puts out decreased attack on his A1. So that's actually a pretty big issue. You're either going to need to have cleansers. I actually have 2 cleansers on this team, and it's still kind of awkward, actually. Or you're going to need to have block debuffs or something like that, and then have, you know, that not be stolen by Head of Mischief, or be able to play around it or overpower that head or something. You're going to need some way to get around that, because the decreased attack is going to reduce his damage by 50%, right? You do half damage with decreased attack on for an attack champion. So that's really going to lower his damage. So that's something to watch out for as well. The other thing is he's going to be really squishy, okay? He's a really squishy champion. So you have to have some way to keep him alive, which is also a problem. So I actually did find that it's not super easy to make it, let's say, do crazy damage. You need to have a lot of pieces in place to make this be really effective. So, for example, you also really want decreased defense and weaken. Weaken massively ups your damage. So we've got Lydia in here, who's one of my only decreased defense and weaken champions. Then we need increased attack. So we've got Mithrala, who also brings us Hex and the protection to keep him alive. We need a block buffs champion. I'm actually fairly limited on those. And because there's so many magic affinity, I can't use even, I can't use Archbishop Pinthroi. So we have to use Ugo for block buffs. So that's a little bit of overlap. You know, like if you've got another top tier block, like if you've got Tuhanarak, or if you've got, I think even better, Ultimate Galek, that's going to really up your damage. But you are like a somewhat, if you want to max this out and do absolutely crazy damage, you're going to need some stronger champs. Obviously as well, let me point out perhaps the biggest thing that can be a problem, which is with Trunda, and you're going in with, you know, double Yumiko, Shuzan, you've spent $100,000 on the game, and this is, you know, it's your time to shine. Let's go, baby. You're going in, right? You nuke down the heads, you play on manual. It's very awkward to set it up, but you get it on manual. When the heads are decapitated, then bam, you get your resets in, and you just fire all of those Trunda A2s into a decapitated head. I'm playing this just on hard, and we've got a lot of speed control with the Nekmoth R. But you'll notice here, I showed you like that perfect setup near the start. That basically never happens again, where you get like multiple heads decapitated. Part of it is also their affinity, right? For this particular run. If there was better affinities, it's going to be much easier to keep decapitating heads and making it handy. But it's quite hard to be firing his A1s with increased attack on, no decreased attack, decreased defense weaken out, multiple decapitated heads. It's actually quite hard to get all that stuff to line up, right? That's an easier thing to line up when you're playing it slow on manual with like resets in a very particular setup. That, oh, look, you see we cleaved 1 million there. That's really nice. Didn't get a weak hit, and it cleaves really well. So that is something to be said for the Trunda version instead of Madman. I mean, you might finally get the perfect setup with Madman. We got 1 million last time cleave. This time he didn't even do the cleave, so we missed out the damage. So again, that is something to watch out for. Do not get too hyped about. Let me skip on ahead here. And basically what happened with this run, it was going really well. Then Madman died, right? And we don't have a reviver. It's actually quite hard to get this in. So we actually wiped out. And this is what we got. So 24 minutes, 130.6 million. And you can see the damage output here. Madman, he's done 38 million. Shamail has done 34. Mithrala with the Hex, 29 million. So this is not like billions of damage with this team. I think that for me is the big takeaway. If you want to go in with Madman and get these runs where you're going to get billions of damage, I think, you know, just like all these really OP teams, you're going to need absolutely crazy gear. You're going to need very specific champions, very specific ones to power him up and make it work. But even without that, this is what I do like about it. Even without like super crazy gear, and I mean, like, I'm late game. You guys know I've been playing for like 3 years, so you know, sort of roughly speaking, how good my gear is. It's better than a lot of you might have. Regardless of that, you throw this guy in, I think on especially normal, especially hard, without that much setup, like so long as you got increased attack and decreased defense, right? He's still going to do really good damage just spamming his A1. And I think with better affinities on the heads, that damage would actually be higher. Like, this is a well-geared Shamail, and Shamail does a lot of damage in Hydra. Madman is still doing great. So I do think, you know, for a free-to-play player, like on a budget, Madman, he's doing great damage, right? You don't need enemy max HP champs. You don't need like these crazy dudes. You can throw this rare in and he's going to perform really, really well for basically anyone on a really small budget, right? You can make this rare do some work, and that is brilliant. I do think it's really hard though to actually get him going in and smashing out crazy damage. I do think it's possible, but I think that again, that is still mostly Kraken territory. But this is a big improvement, right? I've had Krakens tell me that Corpulent Cadaver is free to play, budget friendly. They're spending so much money that they've lost all sense of proportion, right? They don't know what's going on. Without crazy gear and the right champions, you know, especially like an absolutely stacked Brogni, you know, making Corpulent Cadaver work was basically impossible, and you need it to be extremely good to snowball. Trunda, likewise, you need crazy gear, you need the right champions. Madman is definitely the most free-to-play accessible. He's going to potentially do good damage for you, but to do insane damage, yeah, I think it's a little bit of a fairy tale to be selling it to, hey, Mr. Bob, you've been playing for 7 months, just build Madman and you're going to do billions of damage. It's just not going to happen. I don't think. Could be wrong. There might be like some very specific setups I'm missing. But yeah, this is definitely one to watch. Keep your Madman. It doesn't cost much to build him up. He's just a rare. He's easy enough to get. He's easy to build up. I think the cost of investing in this is pretty minimal, and you can give him a go. And yeah, I'm going to be doing that on the live servers. Will this be changed? There's a possibility that certainly it will be changed. I mean, part of their logic for nerfing Corpulent Cadaver was that he was a rare champion, which I don't necessarily agree with. For me, the reason to nerf Corpulent Cadaver is because it was so absolutely broken and it was just a Kraken fest, and that's not good for anybody. Madman, though, yeah, they might nerf him because he's a rare. I think it's also slightly funny. I like when you say, "Oh, go in and nerf Trunda," people would be really upset. Or nerf Madman, I think people would be really upset. I think if Plarium comes in and still does that, if they come in and they nerf Madman and Trunda, but they say, "Oh, we're not nerfing those champions. We're just stopping this. You know, we're stopping how this second hit stuff works. We're fixing that bug. People might be happy with it. They'll do the exact same thing. They'll change the exact same code. It's just politics. It's all about how you sell it. So I do think it's possible that they could change like the Trunda and Madman thing. And make the cleave damage not be multiplied multiple times. That is possible. I guess we'll just have to see. Again, like, it doesn't cost you too much to build him up anyway and take him for a spin. I think he's fun. This, for me, is my favorite one out of all of these because, like I said, I think that this can have a good impact on almost any key, and he's cool. I will say, I think for most people, like, in this particular key, I think like a Razzlevarg or something would be a lot stronger. Like, I did a video on that. I think for typical gear, typical players, I do think the Razzlevarg key I put out is likely to be better for you just because Razzlevarg is so fast. It makes him safer, right? He takes so many turns with his base speed and this that you can build Razzlevarg really fast. You can give him War Master, which is going to help. And he takes so many turns, he's just going to keep healing himself up with Leech. So I found that the Razzlevarg key was more consistently on auto, doing more damage in a safer way than Madman was. But, hey, look, we'll see. This is one to keep an eye on. Just wanted to bring you this video, give you some insight into what's happening, and yeah, make it a bit more realistic as well. So there you go, Madman. Really fun. I don't know who found this initially, but shout out to them. That's so clever. I didn't even think about this champion existing, to be completely honest. And it's really cool to see a budget option. Like, if they didn't change anything about Madman, I think he's probably totally fine. I don't know, maybe again with Kraken teams it's too crazy, but I think Kraken teams are going to be crazy anyway. I think for a regular player, this is just a fun thing, and he's cool and viable, very viable and solid. So yeah, Madman is pretty great. Right, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.